Hello and welcome for another episode of the Cover Vet Chat. Today we are traveling to Norway. The person I would like to have a chat with today, I first met in a jail in Helsinki. Yet she is probably one of the most influential women in veterinary politics in Europe. She is a vice president of the FVE, the Federation of Veterinarians in Europe. She is the president of the Norwegian Veterinary Association. She used to run 2 veterinary clinics in Oslo. And beside of that, she's a very well-known TV personality in Norway. And she is a very keen sports and outdoor woman. So you might wonder, how does she do all this? And even more so, she's obviously, because of all this, a very busy person. So I'm really happy that she has time for this vet chat. So hello and welcome to Torill Moseng. Hi, Torill.
Hello, and thank you for a fantastic introduction. That's very fun. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I think we have to clear that up with a jail right away. Unfortunately, we didn't share a cell, but still, that with a jail is right, because there is a hotel in Helsinki that is based in a former jail, and I think we met over dinner at that hotel. But then it is sort of set up in a little bit with a jail theme, and we were sitting on a very sort of rough wooden table, and water we were drinking out of metal mugs, I think. So it was quite an interesting setting, wasn't it?
It was, and it was a great atmosphere, and it it's the moment you never forget, sitting in a jail and have the atmosphere around, and still you're a free person, but you can imagine how it was there in some way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the that is already sort of quite a few years ago. And if we go a little bit further back, I mean, veterinary medicine, how was your personal journey into veterinary medicine? Was it always something you wanted to do, or how did that come about with you?
My mom told me that when I was a little girl, I had a sign outside my door in my room who says, I am a veterinarian, but no animals are getting killed here. So that I think I had that wish from I was a little girl. But then I kind of moved a little bit away when I went to junior high school and senior high school. And I went to United States for a few years. Worked on a ranch and did different things. And when I came back, I actually met my husband and got my little son. And then I thought, okay, Torill, now it's time to get serious. And I've always been a person that had dogs and horses. I've been a riding instructor, worked with horses in United States. And then I thought, okay, now it's time to be a vet. And then I decided going into vet school. So I was a little older than the people that came right from senior high school. But I think that also made me more secure of how I choose into the veterinary business. So that is the short story, the horse girl with a little bit United States and other things in. And then I went into the veterinary school. Very glad to did it. Yeah, I love the profession.
Yeah. No, I mean, I found the same thing. I mean, with me, it was pretty much straight from school and military service. If I went to vet school right away, to my great surprise, I got a place at vet school. So going by my grades at school, that wasn't certain that I would get a place. But I often found that the fellow students that I had that had done something different before they started studying veterinary medicine, they were often more organized, more focused, actually sort of they had a clearer view what they actually wanted to do also later in life. So maybe not such a bad thing to do something else first before you venture into veterinary medicine.
No, absolutely. I think that's a good skill, and for other people, it's better to go straight into it. But I also was an exchange student in Ghent, Belgium, and that also learned me a lot. So I'm really happy that I choose that also. So other than that, I was in veterinary school in Oslo.
Yeah. And then why small animals? Why not horses?
That's a good question, because of course, when I went into the school, I was sure I was going to work with horses, because I've been doing that all my life and was a rider, I was riding show jumping. But during the study, I was working, part-time in weekends and nights at Norway's, at that time, largest animal hospital. And then the just ball started to roll, and then I got a job there right after I was finished. And we're looking a little bit into horses, but then I got this position there, and then it was small animals, and I never looked back. Actually, I love horses and all the other animals still, but I think that was an interesting career.
Yeah. And but then, so okay, you work with small animals, then you open one clinic, and you open the second clinic, and as if this is not sort of enough, you also go into veterinary politics in Norway. Sort of, how did this come about? Did the clinical work not fill you out sufficiently, or have you always been very active also on a political sort of level?
No, actually, I haven't. But I'm always been very interested in the society and people. No, I had more than enough to do in the clinic after I started, especially when I started my own clinics, which was just, a few years after I finished. And I also, at that time, the same year I finished, I also went into the TV session. So I had a lot to do. It was not like that, but it was a coincidence, as it all is. Sometimes the life is not going the direction you think it is, even if you plan it. So it was a telephone call, asked if I could think about being the leader of the small animal veterinary practitioner, and I didn't have any experience. And after been thinking about and talking to my family, I thought, seems interesting, I will try. And I just jumped into it. And since then, this was in 2003. Since then, I had, a lot of different positions till I ended up as a Norwegian veterinary president in the Norwegian Veterinary Association. And it's so nice work, Wolfgang, you know that. And you meet so many people, and you really can make a difference on a big level,
Yeah, although I think what helps is your enthusiasm for all things veterinary. I mean, because you're going full circle there again, sort of narrowing it down from all species to small animals. But now, as a president of the Norwegian Veterinary Association, you have to cover the whole spectrum again. And I mean, if we talk Norway, I mean, there's still a country with a lot of sort of a large part of the society has a farming background. And then obviously there's also a lot of salmon production in Norway as well, which is, I mean, far removed from companion animal veterinary medicine, with completely different aims and sort of also the finance behind it, the impact also on the national income is obviously completely, well, the different one. So I have to say, I mean, I'm just very impressed, because I mean, I'm happy with my little knowledge I have on companion animals, but I mean, you're covering all species.
Yes, well, I am. But as you know, when you're working in small animals, maybe 100 years ago, you could know everything in veterinary business, or you couldn't even then. But it's developing so fast. So when you are in small animal practice, you also have specialities, and some of us in small animal practice also have kind of the big pictures. And and it is the same about the political work I do now, because when I'm going to talk about salmon, or if I'm going to talk about One Health, or other things I'm not, doing on regular basis, then I have to get the overall pictures. And if there is something I wonder about, which I'm going to talk to the politicians or it's in the media or whatever, then I have good people around me who can give me the details, and then I can, in a good way, front it. So I think people that are working in a broad spectrum of themes, we need to have the big pictures, and then you have this great specialist. I think that's the clue, to know a little bit about everything, to see the big lines.
Yeah.
That's how I work now compared to when I'm usually went into the surgery and were operating all day, which I really, really loved as well, working in a team there.
Yeah. Are you not, I mean, you sold your clinics, but are you not missing the clinical work now?
Oh, I don't know if you have the same expression in English, but there is an expression to say when you go into the sawdust as a horse, then you kind of know the circus or something like that. And I really, really miss it when I visit my great colleagues and get the feeling how nice it is there, how nice it is to help the people and the animals and the teamwork and everything like that. Then I really miss it. But of course, I also had made a choice to go in another direction, and then I had to stick with that choice. But of course, in my heart, a small animal practice has a very special place. But you can't do it all,
No, that's true. I mean, in my case, sort of, it's a little bit the other way around. So I sold my clinic, and now I'm just saying, well, let's have a look. Sort of, I worked for over 20 years with one team, which was really a great team. But now I enjoy working with different teams and throwing myself sort of in different clinical environments. And also, this is partially because of COVID, that I'm sort of, rather than traveling to places on holidays, I go there and work with the people. So I work in different areas in the UK, for example. So I have a purpose to travel, and I met just so many interesting colleagues and working with different teams. And obviously you have to adjust, but still, I mean, I'm over now nearly 30 years now in the profession, and I'm learning so much. I thought, clinically fine, I know this or that, and there's all the time something new, or I have to claw back on knowledge I had sort of 20 years ago or so, and then to adjust to whatever is the current standard in the individual clinic also. So I find that sort of quite interesting.
What a way to go. That is really great. And I absolutely agree with you that you can learn something new every day. And I think especially from the young colleagues and also from students, they are asking so many good questions. When you're standing there and operating for many years, as you also, did, and they ask you a question, and then you think, I'm always done it like that. What is this question? But then you realize you have to answer it if you should go on doing it and answer it right. So there's so much knowledge from the new colleagues, I think, and I'm really, really impressed from the students and the new colleagues that are coming out.
It definitely goes both ways, and I mean, I find as long as you remain open and you admit to yourself that no, sorry, you don't know it all. There's still so much to learn. So then it stays very enjoyable. At least for me, it does. Although I'm so many years now in clinical practice, I still enjoy doing the work I'm doing, and I cannot see that is going to cease, very much to the despair of my wife, who thinks sort of, okay, when are you planning to retire? So, and I have to say, well, when I'm 80, when I'm 85, I don't know. I mean, I don't have to work sort of I don't know, 24 hours a day and that around the year. But to do some sort of clinical work, I can well imagine to do for many, many years.
Yeah, and I think this is you are a typical veterinarian because we always have this engagement for our work. We really love what we do, and when we do that, then we're also open for new things and keeping, our mind in a developing movement. So I think that is something I really like about. Veterinarian work, no matter which section you're working in, because you always learn something new and you get, a lot of people and situation that really, gives you a lot back as a person.
Yeah, yeah. So just back to your personal journey. So there you are, then president of the Norwegian Veterinary Association, but that's not enough for you. So then it has to be Europe. And I mean, especially we should not forget, I mean, Norway is not a member of the European Union. So it's not necessarily very typical to be so involved with European politics. Yet, sort of, you not only represent Norway at the UEVP and then now the FVE, it's also so that you become a board member and you are currently the vice president of FVE. So, how did that sort of develop? And yeah, I don't know, sort of, how do you manage that at the moment?
Well, actually now I just got re-elected for a new 2 years period, and I'm very happy about it because it's so important to work together, because we know now, and especially maybe from the pandemic situation, that everything is working together. So to really see that the whole international society needs to do something together. That makes even this work in FVE, which also work with the World Veterinary Association and American and the Canadian Association, that to see we can work together. So that is really important. And for Norway, which is not a part of the European Parliament or community, in the EU, as you guys are, then I think it's
well, the Germans, yes, but the British part of me, no, we're not no longer.
But you are German, and okay, so Brexit, Germany, yeah. But so we are kind of in the same boat. Then what I see is that the laws that are in UA have to also be implemented in Norway because of a lot of deals we have, with the EU community. And then I think it's so important that we actually have a direct, a possibility to work in the EU, because we know we have to do as EU say in a certain way, to a certain point anyway. And then it's so much better to have something to say in there than not. And that's why I think it's even more important that Norway is really obliged to the work in FVE, so we can also hear our voice into the veterinarian business and into the EU and all the hearings. So I think to see the whole picture and to see that everyone is dependent on everyone, animals, people, nations, everything. We are dependent in one health and to have to eat safe food and all these things. So I think it's so great to see that when we work together, even if there is a lot of different opinion and all, that's the challenge, to get consensus. But even then, I think we can make a lot of things when we stand together. So that's very important for Norway as well.
Yeah. You were talking about sort of One Health. One issue that is now will affect sort of, I think, the veterinary profession, but obviously also the consumers, the new veterinary medicines legislation, which is currently going through the national parliaments as well. If we look at it sort of from a companion animal practitioner side, do you think will that have a huge impact on us on a sort of on a practical day-to-day level? I mean, I see I think there's a considerable difference between sort of food-producing animals and companion animals. So if we look at it from, I mean, that is what Fikava is about, sort of the companion animal practitioner side. Do you think, are there big changes ahead of us? Is that something that we should be aware of now in the years to come?
Well, I think you're right that there is some marking clear differences between food-producing animals and companion animals. But still, we see that there is a lack, for example, of medication in the veterinary business. And that is a challenge, I think. And we also see that the laws are now trying to restrict our possibility to, for example, use human medicine that we have done for years, and have a cultural thing and scientific kind of thing to use. So there are, of course, also that people are stricter with antibiotic use and parasitic use for resistance and everything like that. So I think we need to be aware of it, and of course it will have some impact on small animal practice as well in the end, I think. But right now, I think there's very much focus on food producing animals, and especially because we're using so much, for example, antibiotics into one practice. When you have one incidence, then you may use much more antibiotics. But still, the connection between the companion animals and the owners are so close. So I think we will kind of get stricter prescriptions rights and selling rights in all the Western world to have a sustainability to our practice. For sustainability for using the medication is very important, and we are not talking about stopping used antibiotics. We are talking about use the antibiotic rights, and sometimes then we need maybe some restriction to get in the right direction.
Something that I'm in two minds about is the right to dispense. As most of our viewers might be aware of, in the Scandinavian countries, or it's so that veterinarians are usually not dispensing medication, whereas this is a big part of the veterinary income in countries like the UK or Germany and in most other European countries. And the big debate, ongoing debate, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, looking at it from a personal level, what I saw is, on one hand, working in Scandinavia, I get the impression that something like the use of antimicrobials, if you are not benefit from it commercially, will be reduced if you don't have the right to dispense, but if you only have to write a prescription. On the other hand, I also saw, when working in Sweden, that often the local pharmacies that were supposed to stock medication very often didn't stock them. And I had numerous times difficulties getting trivial drugs, something like meloxicam, a typical painkiller, is through one of the local pharmacies, where I, as a practitioner, if I would have my own pharmacy, I would make dead sure that I have these drugs on the shelf. And I thought, maybe pet owners in Scandinavia have sometimes a raw deal because of the lack of the right of veterinarians in Scandinavian countries not to dispense. They are not in charge of what is on the shelves. So it's a swings and roundabout thing, advantages and disadvantages.
There is, you're right. And of course, when you're not allowed to sell any medication at all as a vet in Norway, no matter what kind of practice you're doing, then you are dependent on the pharmacies. And usually it works out well because they are getting the medication quite fast. And we have a lot of them, so they can ship it, a bit in between each other and stuff like that. But there has been some incidents, as you've described in Sweden, that it has been a delay who has been too long. And it also then has been very challenging to kind of keeping up the animal welfare for our patients. And that is not a situation that is good. And we need to work on that. But usually we do get the medication because this has been like this for forever. And that's why you can say when you're working together with a pharmacy as a vet, they know that they need this and that, and then they have that in the pharmacy like you would have in your practice. So usually it's quite a good deal. And if they don't have it, then they can get it to the owner in a few hours or days. But I think we are lucky in Norway because we have done this in a little different, because we cannot earn any money on medication. Then I think we have a good thinking about what is my hour worth. Because if I go, I have a companion, a dog in my clinic, then I know that what I'm going to be paid for that hour, that's what I are charging for my hour. And that's different.
Paid for your skills, actually, rather than
my skills, even if you are doing a prescription or not. And I think it's a good culture, because it makes you more aware of these things. And of course, I think also it's easier for me to say, no, I don't think you need that antibiotic, when it's not part of my wage. It's human to think that. I think. Then again, I never worked in a clinic where it is like you described in Britain. So I'm really humbled that it's different opinions. But I think it's an easy system to cope with in Norway, as long as you get the drugs that you have.
Another really pan-European issue, I would say, is because of the ongoing pandemic, the increased ownership of puppies and kittens. I mean, whoever you speak to in whatever country, we all have seen a huge increase in puppy and ownership. How does FVE look at this? And also, what are the sort of if we look a few years ahead, are there any concerns, or do you think that we as a veterinary profession are benefiting from this? I don't know. Is there a take? What is the take on that?
Yes, it's absolutely been discussed, because this is what the feedbacks we get is that this is happening all over the Western world, and everyone wants a puppy during the pandemic, and it is challenging things about it. One thing is that the small animal practitioners, as the feedback we get in whole Europe and also in United States and Canada, are getting a lot more to do. Of course, because they get more puppies, but also because people are spending more time with their animals, so they can see actually when they're not okay. And that is, of course, good for business. But a huge concern is how this is pressing up the smuggling business from countries which are not following the EU rules, for example, and also are doing breeding in a very bad way. And for example, the bitches have so awful animal welfare that it's horrible. So you have these criminal people that are really taking advantage of people's feelings. And then, of course, FVE has been on this for a long time. This has also a lot to do with One Health, and diseases and everything like that. And for me, I also been to Sweden actually to talk about this problem in their government. So it's a serious business with everything, because there is so much more to it than just getting a puppy. Because the market, when it goes like this, there's a lot of unserious people doing things they shouldn't do for money, and then don't care about animal welfare. So my advice is always, and I'm talking about this all the time in media, when you want a puppy, don't go and visit puppies, because then you will get home with a puppy, even if you're a vet, you will, because you fall in love and you make the decision on your feelings. So we as vets should advise people, think if you should have a puppy. Do I have time? Do I have money? Do I have knowledge? All those things. What kind of type of puppy should I have? And kind of strengthen the real rational decision. So we will get nice, wealthy, healthy puppies, and not contribute to a business which is very bad for human health and especially also for the animals involved. So that was the long answer, but this is really a thing
Yeah.
going on in the pandemic.
It's definitely a very, very complex sort of issue. And as you said, I mean, that what I followed, I mean, sometimes I work also sometimes when I'm not working clinically, I sort of do some telemedicine. And when asking new pet owners where the puppies come from, I mean, this is in Germany now, I would say probably a third of the new puppies come from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So it's a huge number. And again, there's also a huge number of these puppies enter Germany without all the necessary documentation. So it's and these are the sensible pet owners that get their dogs insured or who seek veterinary advice. So there's a big gray zone of people who, in fact, sort of are not consulting vets, who just get these puppies and then don't necessarily look even well after the dogs. So yeah, huge, I think, something that will keep us busy and concerned over for many years to come, I think.
Absolutely.
Talking about sort of COVID and the impact it has had, how has that been sort of with the veterinary profession? Our colleagues in Norway has obviously huge impact to start with, and lots of extra work everywhere. Sort of, how did the colleagues in Norway cope with all this, and how's the situation at the moment now?
Well, I think as for every veterinarian in the whole world and all people, it was a shock for everyone that it started and it lasted, you know. And especially the challenging thing was what do we do now? Because veterinarians are always looking for solutions. And the solutions they had often was, crossing, for example, communities which they couldn't. Norway is a long country, and then we had all these restrictions that if you were driving, for example, food animal practice, then you had to cross these borders and we're not allowed to it, but you had to go to that acute birth on a cow or whatever. So there's a lot of confusion about how to deal with this. Should companion animal clinics close in the beginning? All these kinds of questions. And how was the restrictions? How were the recommendations? And then I was so happy after a few months when we kind of got a little bit over the hill, then I was so very glad and happy for the international work, because then we saw that actually FECAVA had some recommendations, FVE were working on it, and then we worked together and had scientific based recommendation for clinic owners, for the owner that came in, where should they be, all those things. That really helped. And that's a very good example for how good it is to work together. So when that came on after a few months, then our colleagues were a lot more calmer, because we know how to prevent diseases and everything like that. So but it was really hard work up to the government and to all the decision makers to see how veterinarians had to work, and also that they were the personnel in Norway that was, what do you say, I can't remember the English word, but was the society essential, So these professionals had really a different kind of restrictions than other ones. Sadly enough, companion animals did not get it, but all the other practitioners got it, and we are still working for the companion animals as well, because there's a long story, but of course they should be it as well. All animals should get your help when they need it in a crisis. So in the beginning it was like chaos, and I think it was that all over the world. After a while it settled down, and veterinarians are really good to work in new conditions, and I'm very glad to say that mostly in the profession in Norway has coped with this very well, and there's no one that wants to work that doesn't have a work. so now I think it's quite a controlled situation, and I'm very, very proud of how the veterinarian profession and all the vets has handled this situation, because it's been a lot of extra work, and but now I think we are kind of stable and that it works out well.
Talking about lots of extra work, I mean, I know that there is a real lack of veterinarians in neighboring Sweden. How's the situation in Norway? I mean, Norway is it's obviously, from, if you look at the population, so if it's not a big country, you have one vet school with a fairly sort of a limited output of veterinarians. Do you experience similar issues in Norway as well, that you're struggling finding enough vets to do the work?
Absolutely. We are struggling, of course, in the districts because it's so huge, area. So we're struggling really to get enough veterinarians all over the country. And there is a law in Norway that the government has the responsibility in the communities that there has to be a vet on duty call 24/7, 365 days a year in all the communities, and that's 360 communities around Norway. And now we have a challenge to get enough veterinarians there. But it's not just the practitioners. It's vets in One Health, in fish industry, in all food and safety department, for example, where 400 veterinarians are working in Norway. So there is a lack of veterinarians, not just in rural areas, but the whole profession. So we need more veterinarians, and we have been working in the politics to get 20 more students into the veterinary school now. But of course, that takes time before they get out, and it's too little. Half of all the veterinarians from students in Norway are actually studying abroad. And still, we can't cover it like the rest of Europe. It's a lack of veterinarians.
Yeah. Well, my own alma mater, Hanover, always had Norwegian veterinary students. They were very, very popular, partially because of a great Norwegian Christmas party they held every year, where they invited all the lecturers. So, and then when they had to choose, okay, from which country shall we take more foreign students, Norway was always on the top. So we always like to have.
Wolfgang, that is there something we Norwegian can do? That it's the party.
Oh yes, yeah. That was definitely around Christmas. That was the hottest ticket in town, definitely. Yeah. One other question about Norway and the veterinary profession. Something we have seen sort of emerging very, very fast during the pandemic is telemedicine. Once again, the Scandinavian or the Nordic country, I would say, have been on the forefront of this development. Considering sort of how sparsely populated Norway also is, and how long the distances are from pet owners to their next local vet. I mean, this is obviously a system that has lent itself, I think, to the profession. What's the take in Norway on telemedicine? Something there to stay, something that will be further extended? I don't know. How is that?
As in every country, it's been a huge discussion about telemedicine, and especially that this will take over our profession. But the message is very important to get out. It's not taking over. It's in addition to what you do in practice. Because if you really think about it, we always been doing telemedicine. Sometimes a client are calling, and gets advice, and so we have always been talking to our clients on a distance. But what we think is that this will, if you're doing telemedicine and digital, consultations, then it has to be on a scientific base when you're doing it. And the important thing, I think, and the Norwegian Veterinary Association and also FVE, which just had a policy paper adopted, is that because this will come, this is the future. And then we have to be in front of the legislation, in front of how we think it's okay to use telemedicine, not sit on an office and treat all animals everywhere and make diagnosis when you don't even have seen the animal. So you have to have restrictions and control how we use the telemedicine. And I think if we do it in the right way, it's a huge thing that can make us better veterinarians and do our work better. But if it's used wrong, it's like all the technique instruments you use. If it's used wrong, it's really bad. But to be ahead and be the people that are getting the lines how to use it, I think that is the answer. And that's how we are working in Norway at the time, to get in the lead and to see and make the restrictions and how to do it.
Yeah. So, but Torill, we can't have this sort of chat without also talking about sports and the outdoor life. As a true Norwegian, obviously, you're a very keen cross-country skier. I mean, whoever sort of everybody who follows you, usually, if you are not sitting, I don't know, advising the Norwegian government or doing your television programs or are in other conferences or so, it's usually so that you are on the move doing something. You're running, you're playing tennis, you're skiing. I know that you're a very keen water sports personality. So how important is sort of physical activities in your life, and what do you think sort of is that something that maybe we as a professional, as a veterinarian, should maybe take more on board?
Well, I can only speak for myself about that, but I know exactly what I mean, because I know my mental health, which is a huge theme in veterinary profession, is, you can't say 100%, but almost 100% better when I'm active. So when I'm physical active, my brain is working better, and I'm feeling so much better when if I'm not doing it, because you're right, I'm very busy, but everything you put into priority that is important for you, you will make the time. And I think when I'm active, it's different kind of activities. For example, when I'm playing tennis or when I'm climbing, then I have to be so focused. So I can't think about anything about the work, because then I will fall down for where I'm climbing, or I won't hit the ball. When I'm jogging, like we have done a lot of times, or skiing, then my brain can go, because this is things that, you know, you can have your brain kind of going wherever it wants. So it's different things. And also when I'm up in the mountains, I think it's so important for me to get a break and a reaction. And I also think that, of course, Norway has a very long tradition to be outdoor. If you're not outdoor and are a Norwegian, people think, what are you? Are you crazy? Are you a foreigner?
Yeah.
So I think it's really nice. And we also are so lucky here that we have great nature, that we can, even I'm living in Oslo, in the capital. It's from where I live, it's just a few minutes, and then you are in the forest, so, or the sea. So no, I'm really lucky, and it means a lot to me. And I know also that you love the Norwegian way to be outside.
Yeah, I definitely do, and definitely missing it. So I mean, to sum you up, just to have that again. So I mean, you are a great professional. You are active in politics. You are interested and quite active in sports. You are a successful businesswoman. So actually, if we all put it a little bit together, you're a little bit of a female Fridtjof Nansen, aren't you? I think so, because I mean, sort of, he in my opinion is a little bit somebody who just moved from one field to the next I mean, is it that strikes me a little bit as sort of, essential Norwegian, actually, because it's not only just one area that is covered, sort of, but another and another and another. And there's sort of, somehow I can do these things. Sort of, it's just, as I said, I'm personally in awe of this ability, and there are not a lot of people who can, I think, who can match that. Or I don't know. Do you see that differently? I don't know.
Well, I have to say, Wolfgang, that no one have called me a female Fridtjof Nansen ever before, but I think that's really an honor. But he was a lot tougher than me in a lot of ways. But I think if what you do gives you energy, and if you really love what you do, then it's so much pleasure with doing it, and you get so much energy and feel so good when you can do things you really love to do. And I think that's what drives me on in my work. And of course, you had a very, very nice introduction, and also now you said a lot of nice things. But of course, there is not always you win. There's a lot of cases you lose, and there's a lot of disappointments when you're in practice, when you're in politics, when you're in sports as well.
Yeah.
You have to remember, our heroes also in sports are getting a lot of downs, and that makes you a human. Because I think I like to be a person that people can see that it's possible to do things, because it's possible for everyone to do the things I am doing. But still, it's also important, I think, to be open that sometimes it's really hard and it breaks your heart and you're really, ugh.
But then I think it's the same thing as if you go on a mountain tour and the weather is really horrible. Sort of while you're doing the mountain tour, you think, oh, God, why am I out of here? Why am I out here? I'm soaked, it's wet, the wind or the snow is sort of getting into my face, and it's cold, and if I stop, I will die, and all these things. However, when you arrive at the hut and you sit down and you have a warm drink and you're warmed up again, you're sitting with friends, you forget all this.
I know.
What really counts are sort of the nice moments. And then if you think about it, sort of, I don't know, a month or a year later, you think, that was a great trip. That was fantastic. I don't know.
That's what keeps you going. Exactly. So, you said that, and that goes for the sport, for the mountains, and it goes also for work. And it's all about the people. I learned that from Rens, our president in FVE. And it's all about the people. I think I will have that in my mind. And we can also say it's all about the animals. But working together, like we do in a profession, and feeling that we are a family. And meeting so many fantastic people, that gives you a lot of energy.
So, Torill, to finish this off, cross-country skiing. Will we get a chance to go cross-country skiing together in Norway this winter? What do you think?
Absolutely. I will take you up to Sjusjøen, which is the best place, sorry to say it, in the world. You can go for weeks and never go in the same track. We have to go up there, and we have to do it even if the weather is bad, as you say, because we will remember it and feel good afterwards. You are very welcome to come.
I hold you to that. Okay, thank you very much for this episode, for talking to me, Torill. Sorry, it was a very long talk, but it's just so interesting talking to you. So, to our viewers and listeners, if you like to comment on this episode of Fikava Vet Chat, or if you have suggestions for future episodes, then please email us on vetchat@fikava.org. You can also leave messages on our social media outlet. Once again, thank you very much, Torill Moseng, for joining me for this episode of Fikava Vet Chat, and I hope I see everybody of you next week for another episode of Fikava Vet Chat. Take care.